Most of the patients live with their families. Channel 12's Deborah Horne is here tonight to begin a three-part series on Alzheimer's, a family crisis. Debbie?
Janice, for the person suffering from Alzheimer's disease, it is as though someone has taken a giant eraser and is slowly wiping away their minds. But this series is not about the patients themselves. It is about the devastating effects of the disease on the people who take care of them. People like Patty Torregrossa.
Come on, dear. Come sit down. The impact doesn't come just like that. It doesn't. It didn't for me anyway. I mean, you know there's something wrong, and you know she's not going to be the lady she was. But as far as, I do have emotions about it, but I can't tell you I can't put my finger on what the emotion is that's most prevalent.
Unlike Patty Torregrossa's mother, most of us will grow old with our memories and our abilities intact. We will never know the frustration of having a dementing illness that robs us of ourselves. But millions of people will suffer from some form of dementia during their lifetimes. Most often, it will be Alzheimer's disease. They will be our fathers, our mothers, our wives, and our husbands. There will be no one else to take care of them, and we will do it. And it will cost us in nearly every way. Just ask Patty Torregrossa. What is it like for you?
It's hard. It's hard. And you do so much, and you really can't make the situation right. I do feel gratified in doing it for her, whatever I can, but it's frustrating also because you can see that there isn't I'd like you to try first. A wellness there or isn't making it right.
There's nothing that you can do to make an Alzheimer's patient well?
There's nothing we can do specifically about Alzheimer's disease, given that we don't know what causes Alzheimer's. We cannot make the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease while someone is living. We can most likely say that it is probable Alzheimer's disease. Once that has been accomplished, it is very important to counsel the family upon an understanding of what may be down the road.
My lifestyle began to change, so it meant that I had to rush home and start getting dinner ready. And if I weren't riding my bike to work, it meant I had to take a certain bus, and I was always kind of like rushing out of the office. And I was not that kind of a person usually, hurry up and get out to get home. But then and I would call her, make it a point to call her at least once a day, and then after a while I was calling her a couple of times a day, and when she wasn't beginning to answer the phone. So it was kind of hard then, and then I decided I think I should be home with her.
Tomorrow night we will look at one type of service that is available for making caring for an Alzheimer's patient easier, Janice.
Very moving. We'll look forward to that report, Debbie. Thank you.
Caring for the person with Alzheimer's disease is an all-consuming task that can last for years. But there is help available. Channel 12's Deborah Horne is here tonight with the second part of her series to tell us what that help is. Deborah?
Walter, we called our series Alzheimer's, a Family Crisis, because that is exactly what it is. A crisis that involves not just the Alzheimer's patient, but the entire family. There are various services available to help families cope. And one of those services is daycare for the elderly.
Whoops. I know it. Well, we're going to have to button you up a little bit because it may be cool, Mom. Take your hand out of the pocket. You got this heavy sweater on today. I thought we were going to wear your raincoat. So I remember Dr. Fretwell asking me when we first, one of the very first interviews we had with her, or appointments, Patty, what's the best time of your day? And I said, when my mother walks out of the door and goes to the care center in the morning, because then, you can kind of unwind a little bit. Bye-bye, Mom. Have a nice day. You're a good girl.
It has been 5 years since Jeannie Torregrossa was diagnosed as having Alzheimer's disease. To provide much-needed relief for her daughter Patty and some recreation for herself, Jeannie comes here each day to the Fruit Hill Daycare Center for the Elderly, the first of its kind in Rhode Island and one of the first in the nation. It was started 13 years ago by the woman who still runs it, Sister Ruth Crawley.
We have two main goals. One for the health maintenance of the people that are being admitted here, and the second is for the caregiver. because it's a respite service we're giving them by taking them all day away from them.
Which one do you like, Jeannie? Now look at them carefully. Do you like this?
It puts an awful lot of stress on the caregiver. The responsibility is great. I'd say stress, and I mean stress, and the care, the constant care they have to give them.
So you relieve them of that burden, at least for some
For a time, and that's why. Her hours away from me are still devoted to her. You know, I have to run and get her personal needs, and of course, keep the house free of any obstacles for her, and neat.
We used to ride a bike.
Oh, yes, I do that since the weather is become, or had for when we had spring a few days ago. I try to ride at least for a good hour, and I do that early in the morning, right after she leaves, so that it does leave me a little free time to do other things I have to do. And I, of course, I've always enjoyed riding the bike.
It used to be in my day, the mother or father had to get to work and leave the children somewhere. Well, the children now have to get to work and leave their mother and father someplace, because someone has to watch them. Someone has to make their dinner, you know, and care for them.
There are 10 elderly daycare centers in Rhode Island. Anyone interested in finding one should check the yellow pages under Senior Citizens Organizations. Tomorrow night, Walter will tell you what happens when a family can no longer take care of their Alzheimer's patient.
Okay. Well, thank you, Deborah. Researchers still don't know what causes or what will cure Alzheimer's disease. The only certainty is that it will sap the mind and eventually the life of its victims.
Channel 12's Deborah Horne is here tonight for the conclusion of her series, Alzheimer's, a Family Crisis, to tell us what happens when a family can no longer take care of the Alzheimer's patient at home. Debbie?
Janice, the heartbreaking part about Alzheimer's disease is that its victims do get worse, not better. And for each family, that usually leads to a difficult dilemma, whether to continue caring for the person at home or placing him or her in a nursing home.
How long have you been living here?
In that house?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't remember now,
No. You could remember one time, though.
but I used to remember it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's okay.
The social worker came in and she said to me, I'll never forget it. She said to me, Mary, knowing that my father had recently died, she said, essentially, you've lost both your parents and you need help. She said, now you have this disease also. Because while she's the victim of the disease, you have to deal with her changing behavior.
Mary Christian's mother, Jenny, was diagnosed as having Alzheimer's disease in 1984. Initially, she was cared for at her Massachusetts home. But eventually, Mary began to see that her mother's mind was slipping away more and more. So she made a very difficult decision to put her in a nursing home. She chose the Bayberry Commons nursing home here in Burrillville.
It's something that very oftentimes we postpone. And I would ask myself when I was just attending Alzheimer's meetings, when do you know? When do you know? When it's too early or too late? How do you know? People would say to me, Mary, you'll know. And I didn't. It took someone objectively to say, I think you'd better start looking.
When they finally come, how do they feel generally?
Most families, I believe, feel extremely guilty. Sometimes their guilt feelings may be manifested in over-attentiveness toward their parent. There are daily visits, sometimes twice-a-day visits if they're close enough by. And it's as if they still want to be in control and they still want to feel a certain responsibleness to their parent.
You like this color?
Yeah.
What color is this?
Is I'd like you to write down 3 to 5 things that worry you, that are on your mind.
Perhaps the most important way Mary has learned to cope is by joining and now leading an Alzheimer's support group.
In many, many ways, it's more the family members, the caregiving members' disease than it is the patient. It's devastating on family members who don't get support or don't have the means to seek support or are confused and frightened and anxious. And That's what the support groups are all about. There are far worse diseases to have than this. Pretty bad disease for the family, unless you get a handle on it, get information, seek help. You get help. People do help.
Yeah, oh, that's pretty.
Anyone who wants more information about this disease and the help that is available should contact the Alzheimer's Disease Crisis Intervention Center, 23 Broad Street in Pawtucket, 02860-2949, or call 725-3870. Janice, getting information is the key to understanding and living with this sad disease.
Difficult dilemma for families.
It is.
Okay, thank you, Debbie.